Welcome to Podcast This Escape, the podcast where we talk about the escape room that we escaped from in the previous episode of this podcast. Spencer, David, congratulations, you did it!
Spavard changed their life.
Whoa. That was sick.
Really good work. There are, as I promised, some incredibly smart puzzles you had to figure your way through, being very smart about it, and some
Not so smart.
you had to turn off that part of your brain, get real
it was
basic.
So fun. It was
And
so
you
fun.
did great at both.
Now that I've played one of these games, I can see the appeal.
I love that we used brawn as well.
Yeah, a little bit of smashing of lockers.
Hit him with the left hook.
No, that worked out really well. I think the two of you worked very well together. You were on the same wavelength for a lot of your ideas, or if you weren't, it was a really helpful difference in wavelength. Where one would be like, I'm pretty sure it's this, and the other went, wait a minute. No, well, let's do it this way. Was there any moment for you guys that like stood out for you as terms of like you felt good, you felt like you were having like you did well at solving, or you felt smart?
What made you feel proudest of yourself?
It was really fun watching Spencer get through the temp and bowling with the when the multiplication X clicked into place. That was very cool. That was so
I was
cool.
gonna say when David suggested throwing the balls at the bowling pins, I was nowhere near having that thought. And as soon as it happened at work, I was like, yes, that's so good.
And
Thank you.
Isn't that so much often the way one person in an escape room is sitting back thinking about how things are going to connect, and one person is just doing and mashing things together?
Yeah, but that's the required teamwork.
Absolutely,
it's like, you need someone to gather all of to be like, no, let's just try this and see if this works. And it usually, like, if you've got the right idea, it works.
I tend not to just try things to see how they work in escape rooms, and that's often my downfall. So yeah, I need someone in a room to do that for me.
Yeah, I thought
I was like, I can't wait for the new thing we unlock that will clearly look like balls are used, and it was not even close. Like would never cross my mind.
Yeah.
But then it's like when you get into like the nitty gritty stuff of like what is the actual riddle here. Just I feel like my brain, I struggle to like process what the parameters are for like the puzzle, and so it's really nice just to watch Spencer just get through and be like, yo, he already knows like kind of like what's happening here.
That X was such a good like detail.
That's a relief. That was an ad after the playtest.
So I did this puzzle originally, and it didn't have the X on it,
and it went
and you
nowhere.
Just had to key in on strike.
I just spent the whole time. It wasn't even strike branded.
It was
literally
branded.
just Danny was like, "Why don't you just multiply them?" And I thought we need some kind of indication for this multiplication because I was never going to get there. And we were in the playtest. We were thinking it through. We were like, okay, how do you suggest to someone to multiply like a 1 and the 9 and multiply 2 and 7? Like. I don't feel that that's inherently implied enough just by the numbers. And then we were going, and I went, oh, wait a minute. Doesn't bowling just have a multiplication symbol as part of its core imagery? And so we were like, let's make them strike
half of the
branded.
objects in this room already have brands on them, and so it only made sense to add another brand.
The thing I really like about it, if I don't know which image it was the first image, is that I also pointed out, if you read them from the bottom up, you get number of balls, then the X symbol, then the number, and then the ring around the neck of the bowling pin makes an equals sign.
It looks like an equals?
So it's literally balls times 1 equals. Balls times 2 equals. And I was like, that's just serendipitous. Look at that.
And then the seal said that it was with the added power of magnets.
Oh, yes, that was also new.
So you got to add all of those together.
So to add them together, it's the added power of magnets as a little slogan.
Nice.
But yeah, so I think the X did help. But I was really glad. I was worried when we added it. When we added it, I was worried it was going to be like, oh, they're just going to see the X and be like, that's 1 times balls. That's 2 times balls.
Nah.
But it was the perfect.
No,
it was the perfect level of puzzle, I think, in the end.
Yes. It was a detail that I completely overlooked, and it wasn't until it got called out, and then it had to be like, why would they have put it there? They didn't need to get put there. That's not like a thing you have to have on a bowling pin. Wait a second, it's a clue.
It's a clue.
Thank you so much for being so willing to play with my inflatable chair snorkel.
I was going to say that was I think that was my most proud moment. It happened so early on. But I thought I felt so clever.
Good.
That was so. I really love the integration of like role play with the riddles. It makes it really satisfying when you get an achievement through the role play, because because sometimes with the puzzles you just feel so stuck that you're like, oh, there's like imagination still has like a play in it, which is it's so much. It just makes it so rewarding.
And I think that's part of Danny's like, and I think all good escape room designers do this, but I think it's a good example of Danny doing it. Of like the puzzles don't exist in this pure abstracted world. It's not like you going along and then suddenly there is a puzzle on the ground. The puzzles are like present within the context of the room that you're in, so that you can solve them by role playing. You can solve them by being like, well, let's just mess with what's going on in this situation. I'll jump on a chair and do this, or I'll look, like they exist in the world so that you can have sillier ideas with them. And think
it is always my preference to have more of those as opposed to things like multiplying bowling balls or getting the S words together like that. Those are pretty abstract puzzles that could have been replaced by any number of things. So I like to keep those to a minimum in the rooms and only have like one or two, and then just have messing with the physical stuff, because that's what you've got to do.
Yeah.
That is fun to actually, when you have to put yourself in the mindset of like, if I was in this room, like what could I do physically, or like what could I smash together to see if it makes something happen.
And
if the slogan of the lockers is the strongest fronts and backs, could I just push the side?
That was
like
nice.
that stuff's really fun.
I really enjoyed that in the play. That didn't change in the playtest. I got to that and had the exact same situation. Like, wait a minute, the front and the backs, you say?
There seems to be a gross oversight in their whole slogan.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Yeah, I think that's what really helped with the diagrams. Like, if just, I think drawing it out just really gives you an idea of like how you could play in that world, and it's just so fun. It's so fun to actually interact with it. The watching the connection, Spencer, when you made the connection of the directions with the animals, that was like, oh, dude, I just started thinking how long I would have been stuck at that moment if you weren't there, and it would have been like 45 minutes, I reckon.
I did make a note, it was like a mental note in my head of like, okay, like why were these animals picked? And in my head I was like, I keyed in on the cheetah and the zebra of like, okay, there's stripes and dots. And I like had a mental note of that.
Wow.
But then I sort of ruled it out as like, but then like there's no like color specific pattern of an echidna and like no color specific pattern of a camel. And I did not think about the such a unique shape or identifiable, clueable shape.
Well, it was interesting because I, in the playtest, went through this puzzle, and on the first one, I have no idea what they're asking me. Dots, stripes, I don't quite get it. I don't see it. And Danny went, oh, you can go to the next question as well. You can just see all the questions. I was like, oh, okay, cool. And as soon as I
believe you said no.
Yeah, that was like, no, I dare you. But eventually I was like, all right, I'll go to the second question. And as soon as I saw that spiky little crown thing, I was like, oh, like an echidna, like spiky. And went back and redid everything for the first question. So that's sort of like, they get a little bit easier, I think. So like, if you don't get it on the spikiness on the second question, by the third one, that's just a camel's hump. And it's, I think, like you'd be like, that's a hump. So
right.
I know a hump when I see one.
Even if they're not easier, it's like you get more information. And you're like, wait, I've got 4 symbols, 4 things. Like, so you can, if you don't get it straight away, like Spencer did, where you just sort of immediately saw it, like getting all 3 questions, you end up with a lot more information to work with. So it becomes easier and easier to make that like, oh, wait a minute, this is what this is asking me.
There are also so few things in my escape rooms where I give really specific points about where they are in the room. And like designating the 4 corners for these things.
Yeah, it makes it very clear that they are.
I hadn't actually thought about that angle. Yeah, it was very specific as to what corner each one was.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. Like we had that in the episode before this, where there are moments of like one of these 14 doors is open, and then you say to the player, you can choose which of the 14 doors is open.
Yeah,
and that's
I actually listened to that. So I had,
and so it's an indication.
I really like that, actually. I thought that was very fun.
It's like an indication of like, now you know the position doesn't matter because you chose the position and you don't know the answer. So there's no way you chose the right position for this to be in. So if later on you're like, does it matter which door was open? You can be like, no, because I chose what door was open, so it can't be relevant.
Unless I'm a goddamn magician.
That was cool. I did think about that's exactly something a magician would do.
Yeah.
Of like, I'm making a big effort to make you believe that it didn't matter.
Yeah.
It's like such a magician thing
So
to do.
magic. That's so magic.
That is true.
Yeah.
But we're not magicians here. Although I will say I've used that. I use that as a little trick. It's a weird trick in tabletop role playing games when I've been running the games, which is if you want people to feel more betrayed. When like if you have you set up a character in your story, and it's like this character is going to secretly be evil, right? They're going to betray the good guys, and what you do is you get them to name them as part of their backstory. You're like, oh, this is an old friend of yours. Like, what's his name? And they're like, oh, let's call him John. You're like, okay, it's your old friend John. And then they're like, John is my old friend. I named him. He can't be evil. And you're like, no, he was always going to be evil. I just didn't have a name for him. And as soon as you name him, it's like, you own him. It's like, that's part of my backstory. How dare you turn that against me? It's like, it was nothing, but you named him. So now it's a real betrayal.
That's very good.
Which I really like. It's like, well, I've done that as well. We did that once in a game that I was running where we introduced Danny's character, but we under the basis of like, there are spells in whatever system we were running at the time, but like there are spells that are like, charm person. Like, you appeared to this person as an old friend. Like it makes them think you're an old friend of theirs.
And I was just joining in for 1 or 2 sessions.
So Danny was coming for one session and I went, well, okay, before you get introduced, you have cast that spell on one of the players. So when Danny joins the session, I go like, all right, so Danny writes in, actually, like this, for you, that Danny is an old friend of yours. Danny, like, describe that friendship. Like, Danny is an old friend of yours. That's the context in which I'm introducing the character.
And it just felt like it was a contrivance to say why I was joining the campaign slightly
But instead
late.
it was like, no, you're under the effect of magic that makes you think. So like later on I could be like, after an hour of gameplay, be like, hey, just a quick thing. You've never met this person in your life. I don't know why you thought they're an old friend of yours. You have no idea who they are. And just like, what the hell? What's going on? It's a really nice thing because it feels like because when you do it in the meta,
I should incorporate more betrayals into my escape rooms. They're fun.
Because when a person is like, oh, they cast a spell, and suddenly you now think they're an old friend, you will never play that as true. You'll be like, okay, I guess they're an old friend. But if you just say, oh, they're an old friend of yours, this is the contrivance of the meta. They go, great, I'll accept that as true. Which is how they should be accepting the spell. So it's a fun way to like mess with people by.
I like that. Also, I like the idea of like, Danny leaving or a character leaving, and then you find out like you've been charmed the whole time, and you don't tell the player why, or the player doesn't know why, and they just have to be there worried like, what did they do or what did I do?
Yeah, like what? Looking through mechanics,
it's going to come back to bite us.
It's like when you just tell them to roll dice and they roll a 1, and you just go, okay, I'll make a note of that.
Yes.
Danny and I have been watching a lot of people playing Blood on the Clock Tower, which is a game.
Love that game.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's like a social deduction game where it's like someone's a demon, someone's
really
like
want to play.
an evil minion, everyone else is a good townsfolk, and you're trying to figure out who the demon is. But the thing that sort of makes it stand out, there's 2 things. One is that there's a player running it so that things aren't random, they're always interesting. But also,
that's so sick.
But also, it's like there are so many mechanics. There's all these weird. So it's really you have all of these tools to figure out what's true, but there's all these ways to like pervert those tools so they don't work, and it's this really really complex rather than just like basic social deduction. There's a lot of mechanical stuff going on.
There are lots of good reasons for good people to lie.
But when things happen, you don't explain why things happen to people. You just tell them the results. So you get that same moment where like someone will be playing in a really complicated game and there's weird mechanics, and you just go up to them and be like, hey, so you know how you're the town washerwoman? Yeah. You're the town barber. Bye. And they just go, wait, what? Why did you just tell me this fact? What does this mean? What's going on? And they have to look through all these things like, why could that happen? And it's that same feeling. It's just like,
Beautiful.
Here's a fact. Bye. It's a nice thing to see. But we're talking about escape rooms. No, I think the 2 of you did really well. I'm glad you felt as smart as you came across, because I think you really sort of keyed in. And I like, David, there was a moment that you commented when Danny was talking about like, you can't do this with the strength of your lungs, and you very much keyed in like, oh, I see what you're doing. Talking about my lungs. That's very clear that, so you've obviously kind of keyed into the way these games are played. You're an old hand now.
Yeah. I'm starting to feel it out. Oh no, but I think it's also like you guys do a really good, and I think it's like with the storytelling. It's not like hand holding, but it's just like you make sure what to emphasize, and like it really paints. It doesn't feel like you're giving us exposition. It just feels like you're painting the world, and it's really it's way more fun.
Yeah, it's interesting because you want to almost get like you know how like in a video game, you get the yellow rocks. Where it's like you can climb there because for some reason those little bits of rock are painted
like the
yellow.
texture is different there. Like,
and so you need that with words a little bit in these rooms. It's like everything is here, but I'm going to describe this very specifically. So you're like, oh, that's an interactable part. Like that's relevant. Okay, I get it. The lungs are a problem. Okay, I need a different way of generating air.
Wow, what was the part with the different clothing on the animatronics?
That was just so that you could get a snorkel.
Yeah, that was, oh wow.
yeah. No, you don't need the bikini or the goggles or the flippers. but yeah, you found, and you did that very quickly. You're like, oh, I'm going to grab that snorkel. Like, I reckon the snorkel's relevant. And,
I felt really good.
Yeah.
I felt clever on that one.
Yeah, as you should have. I think you should both feel very proud about how you got through the room. It was really lovely.
Mm-hmm.
It worked out really well. There were some parts that I spent so long on the pins, just being like, what do I do with this slightly magnetized pin? I pick up a single ball and I stick it to the pin. And I looked at Danny, and Danny looked back, was like, yeah, okay. It's like, I do it again.
Works, I guess.
Okay, what do you do? Like, it was in the end, I dipped them into the ball pit full of balls.
Yeah, well, the fun part is like, because like half of it as well, like, because I'm kind of looking at the game. I think like what I add to the game as well is just like anything that's really just fun, or like any kind of moment for like slapstick comedy, or just something like something stupid.
And I absolutely want that. And
Yeah,
sometimes
but
it's 100% necessary to solve a puzzle.
When you described flipping your shirt inside out to load up with balls, I get such nostalgia doing that move. It's a universal move.
That meant a lot to everyone. Everyone gets that.
But it's just like it's so fun that those moments have payoffs because and then also like just smashing through the locker. They're surprising. They're surprising as a player because I don't know, in my brain I'm like, oh, it's gonna be like like the mazes where like they'll just have like a dinosaur in front of the maze so you can't cross there, but there's a big gap between the dinosaurs. Like, I could fit through there, but I don't know. I feel like you allow for those little gaps to be really fun.
Yeah. I think it is. I think Danny, you do very well at that.
Aww.
Like these aren't pure puzzle experiences, or not puzzle. They're not like a series of puzzle hunt style puzzles, and they're also not just free form. It's a really nice balance, I think, and that it is.
Yeah, this was a very good balance.
It's similar to when you talk about like puzzles in like a Zelda game, right? Where it's like the puzzles are about how you engage with the environment and walk around, but it's like that's still puzzles, right? The dungeons in a Zelda game are puzzles, just not the same way people would think about puzzle games. And there's that element of it in these. It's like exploring the space and solving things by just being like, wait a minute, do these two objects interact? Can I do something weird to this? Can I roll this down a hill? And it works really well.
And I gotta say, I was very ready to have like a real antagonistic relationship with Quinn, and I've never had my heart melted faster by anyone's backstory.
Oh, Spencer, I'm so glad you said that because I had the exact the intrusive thoughts in my mind was like, bully her.
Yeah.
But there was something in the back of my head.
Sick dad. I'm trying to feed my family. I just like it was.
and then there was another part of my brain that just went, I'm glad I didn't bully her because that would have been a real dick move after.
Well, look, I just want to say thank you so much for coming onto the show, for playing through the room. It was really nice to listen to. It was very fun to run.
It was fantastic.
It was wonderful.
So much fun.
David, if people wanted to check out stuff that you're doing, where can they find you in the world?
Oh yeah, you can find me under at David Post Office on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube. Instagram, I post live shows that I'm doing. So
nice.
Yeah,
wonderful. And then Spencer, you can link people to wherever you want to go. I know you've got your own website, your own space, your own Spencer is Puzzling, but you've also got this Kickstarter. Where should people go to check things out?
So yeah, if anyone would like to go to SpencerIsPuzzling.com. Right there on the homepage, you'll see some skydiving squirrels, and you can click them to check out the Squirrels Gone Wild Kickstarter.
And I believe as of release, there are a few days left, maybe a bit under a week or so.
Yes.
So get in there quick.
As of recording, it hasn't funded yet, which is always nerve-wracking.
But as of release, it's made
it's gone
10
pretty
times
good.
its budget.
You can do it, everybody. It'll be well worth it.
Yeah, if the line keeps going at the angle it's going, we will fund right about the time this episode comes out.
If these trends
You will make
continue.
all the difference.
But yeah, look, check it out.
Yes.
We have
If
not
you're listening to
played-
this podcast and you go on the Kickstarter and it hasn't funded, there's a guy named Spencer who's been a nervous wreck for the last week or so.
But look, we have not played this specific game, but we can
vouch for
vouch
Spencer's puzzle
for how
creation and
good
game
the puzzle
creation
games that you make are.
many times over.
So we are very excited for this one as well. So definitely, if you're interested in puzzle games, if you're interested in fun puzzle games as well, go and check. No, fun, lighthearted, I suppose. That while still having a lot of quality. I think sometimes that is a hard balance to find. Things are either very good puzzles but very, very serious, or they're not very good puzzles because they're so light and silly. And I think you do a really good job of making fundamentally brilliant puzzles within a lighthearted situation, which I think is a really nice place to be in the industry of puzzle making. And that was true as well. We're playing your
no
escape
arguments
rooms
here
as well. We had so much fun playing as dogs in a physical escape room and doing fun. I think it's a quality that you always have that works really, really well in the puzzle space. So comes with a huge recommendation. Go and check it out. Go and support the Kickstarter and be cool people.
Yeah, what he said, what Bill said.
So thank you so much for coming on. Thank you, Danny, for running the room.
Thank you.
And riding the room and being really cool and making really good puzzles that are also lighthearted and filling that space in the escape room world. And thank you, everybody, for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you want to help support the show, the best thing to do is tell people about the show. Spread the word. People don't like listening to podcasts when they're advertised to them because they're usually not in a podcast place. But if you talk about it to people, they will actually go and check it out. So it is the best way to help grow the show. So we appreciate that so much. The other way to support the show is by donating through Patreon. We don't run ads on the show. This is a show where we get all of our funding and the food that we need to, eat and have a home through Patreon. So we appreciate everybody who supports there. Anybody who signs up at any level of donation can appear as an NPC in one of Danny's rooms.
Yeah, thank you so much to Quinn.
Yeah, you're in the room now. Didn't get bullied.
I hope your dad gets better, Quinn.
I hope your dad gets better, Quinn. There's also bonus episodes for all our $5 donors. We're reading through Encyclopedia Brown books. You can listen to the playtest. There's completely additional. We've gone from weekly releases to more than weekly releases because every now and then we just throw in a cryptic crossword that we solve, which is a really good fun as well. There's bonus episode for our $10 donors. There's video content and vlogs and reactions to escape rooms and things like that in social media. And reactions to escape rooms in pop culture. Lots of fun stuff. It's a really good way to get a bunch of bonus content and also to support art and to let something exist that is free for everybody who wants it and with fun benefits for people who want a little bit more. So thank you, everybody who donates as well. All right. I think that's everything.
I think that's it.
Goodbye, everybody.
See ya.